Welcome back. Welcome to another edition of On My Mind. Even though it's only been a couple months since we did one of these, I thought it's time to do another one because things have changed so much. It's been an exciting few months, hasn't it? We have seen that a lot of the world, though it's still in the tragic circumstances of COVID, and we've seen spikes in many different places. We're still seeing asset prices very high, we're seeing equity prices very high, and we're seeing natural gas prices very high, pretty much globally. We're in a situation today where I checked that we have, JKM and TTF, the European price and the Asian LNG price, the European pipeline price and the Asian LNG price, both of them well over 13 US dollars an MMBTU. And we also see US gas prices relatively high at $4 MMBTU. I think it should be noted that though the international oil prices and the JKM LNG price and the European gas prices have much more than doubled in the last few months, we haven't seen that same doubling in the American gas price. The American gas price has gone up from maybe the $3 range to the $4 range, maybe a 20-25% jump with the recent increase in demand. But yet we have seen a massive increase everywhere else. That should demonstrate the resilience of the US gas production supply. It should demonstrate the extra capacity that is available in the US gas system, and also should give a lot of comfort to people who have long-term US LNG deals that they will pay as close to a flat low price as you can ever get, because the US gas price is a lot less volatile than any prices linked to oil or any prices linked to a JKM type price, which you have seen how expensive it is now. But before we get into price discussion, let's just review kind of some of the interesting things we're seeing around the world. In terms of demand, demand is growing everywhere. Though we have seen that the COVID has impacted a few places, demand stays high. Demand is high in Asia, where pretty much every country wants to increase its LNG capacity. Yes, we saw a recent announcement by the Japanese to reduce their LNG demand in the next few years, but I remain skeptical whether they can actually do that, replacing by nuclear and by renewables. But irrespective, the demand growth wasn't in Japan in the first place. It was in places like China, lesser extent India, and very much in Southeast Asia. Those places are continuing to see increase in demand. We're seeing an increase in demand in Latin America. It seems that nearly every year we have another crisis where there's not enough hydroelectric power. Maybe this is something that we're going to see on a sustained basis for many years. Either way, we are seeing that demand is growing in Latin America. Argentina, which at one point recently thought it was going to be an LNG exporter, is very much an LNG importer again. We're seeing demand increase in Europe. Yes, we have seen some new pipelines come into the southern part of Europe through Turkey, bringing some gas in from Russia, but LNG demand still stays high. There are new terminals now in places like Croatia and in Greece. There's LNG bunkering systems being built all over the Mediterranean. In Northern Europe, demand is high right now. It remains to be seen what will happen once Nord Stream 2 finally comes online towards the end of this year. I read somewhere that Nord Stream 2 might displace as much as 20 million tons of LNG, a massive amount. It remains to be seen whether how the appetite in Western Europe is to buy more Russian gas, to be very dependent on Russian gas. And every time you buy Russian gas, it comes with a few extras for sure. It may sound good right now, but they'll get you at the end is the way I look at it. So yes, I think it's very tempting to buy more Russian gas, but then all you're doing is increasing the power Russia has over the European markets. Let's talk a little bit about supply. Supply is actually quite interesting. We are seeing a problem of supply in many parts of the world. There are very few parts of the world where we see upstream production actually potentially going up. Upstream production is declining in Europe for sure, in the North Sea. It's declining in the Caribbean. You see Trinidad and places like that. It's declining in South America. It's declining in some parts of Africa. It's declining in many parts of Middle East, not of course Qatar, but in many other parts of the Middle East. And it's very much declining in Asia Pacific. It's declining in Southeast Asia dramatically. Southeast Asia is definitely becoming more of an LNG importing than an LNG exporting region. So as the upstream supply decreases, you're also seeing less and less LNG being produced by many of these regions. There are plants in Australia, plants in Indonesia, plants in Europe, plants in the Caribbean, like Trinidad especially, where they are running well below capacity. So we are actually seeing a situation where we are seeing demand grow worldwide and production drop in most parts of the world. The places where production is not dropping is Qatar, is Russia, and potentially in the US. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what the buyers, the sentiment of the buyers, the way I see it. I think for the last couple of years, there's a bit of complacency with the buyers. Whenever they wanted a spot cargo, it was available at a reasonable price. Yes, it was not always a flat price, but it was a reasonable price. What we're seeing now is actually there's not that much LNG available. And sometimes there are situations where the buyers may want a cargo, which is just not available. And sometimes it is available, but then it gets canceled because the prices have gone up so much and the sellers would rather sell it elsewhere. So buyers, especially utilities, electrical utilities, cannot be dependent completely on the vagaries of the spot market. They have to be willing to sign long-term deals. This was very difficult before. I think it is changing. I looked at a list done recently of the LNG deals done in the last 2 months, and most of the deals are 10 years and above. Some are as high as 20 years. So maybe we are seeing a little bit of a realization from some of the buyers that they need to sign long-term deals. Unfortunately, we're also seeing that more than half of the deals were signed with portfolio players. Now, portfolio players and trading companies add a lot of benefit to the system. They make the system more transparent in some ways, they add liquidity, and they allow emerging markets without the credit to buy into LNG. But at the same time, it's in their best interest for the prices to stay high, so they can buy low and sell high. If we continue to let most of the long-term deals being signed by portfolio players, we are basically guaranteeing a period of sustained high prices. That may or may not be what we want to do. We are seeing now high prices in the summer. This is very unusual. Usually this time of the year, prices are coming down. My own view is that we're going to see these high sustained prices globally for a while. Who's going to be the driver of these prices? It's really whatever the Qataris and the Russians want to do. The Russians control the price in Europe, and the Qataris are trying to control the price of LNG everywhere else in the world. Now we have a few years before the Qatari expansion happens, but they are very smart. They're actually repricing their existing contracts at these lower prices right now. Pretty good, really. Pretty smart for them. But what that does mean is that we're going into a period of high sustained prices. The only solution to this is for the buyers to step up to the plate and support new supply outside Russia and Qatar. Where is that new supply? Obviously, plus the US has a lot of greenfield projects that are looking to sign deals. Tellurian has signed a couple of deals, but not enough to get them to FID. We're seeing some innovative deals coming out of Cheniere. The fact is, I'm just going to regress a little bit back to supply for a minute. Canada is looking like it's not going to be a major LNG supplier. Every project in Eastern Canada has now been cancelled. There's only going to be one project in Western Canada, the way I look at it, realistic project, which is the one that's under construction, and who knows what the ultimate cost and the price and the schedule is going to be. I'm skeptical whether they can be on time, on budget, but I don't know. But in the end of the day, the Canadian producers have to look elsewhere, and that's why one of the Canadian producers has signed a deal with Cheniere to actually bring Canadian gas and net back that price all the way so they can sell it through the Cheniere LNG system in the US Gulf Coast. So that tells me that Canada is not going to build a lot of new LNG projects. So back to what the buyers should do. If the buyers don't step up to the plate, so to speak, and start supporting new greenfield projects in the US and elsewhere, then I don't think we'll see a lot of new supply coming along in the marketplace. Mozambique was supposed to be another future massive supply. Some people still call it in the top 5 producing potential production. I'm very skeptical. And I saw a recent report where people are still thinking it's going to come online in 2023 and 2024. There's no way. They haven't done any construction there for the last 6 months. Probably will not do any construction for, who knows, 1 year more, if that. We have no idea when Mozambique will start producing significant amounts of gas. Yes, there'll be that offshore coral, but that's very small, 1.5 million tons. So we're going to be looking at a situation where in 2021, I don't see any FIDs. I could be wrong, but right now we're in the middle of 2021 and there's no FIDs going to happen. If you don't FID, which is the final investment decision, we don't sanction the projects now, we're not going to see any gas 4 years from now. Next year, it remains to be seen how many FIDs that can happen outside the Qatari and the Russian projects. We need the buyers to do something. There are quite a few American projects, including Texas LNG, that are looking for customers. Buyers have been reluctant, but I think things are changing. They realize that spot cargoes are not always available, they're not always cheap, and do you always just want to be buying from the portfolio players? So I think we're going to go look at interesting times. If the behavior continues as is, expect sustained high prices for many years. No matter what, we're going to see high prices for next 2 or 3 years because there's been so few FIDs in the last few years. Well, we shall see what happens. Thank you again for listening, and I look forward to your comments. Please leave feedback and comments below. Thank you.